those, did we decide that we're doing a shir next week also, right? That was our...
I think so. I think there's a shir.
The next 2 weeks. The next 2 weeks,
okay.
yeah. Ariel said it would be fine. Or if, I mean,
Okay.
we don't need it. It's not like we need a room or something. It's
Right. Okay. So let's go. What happened yesterday was I was on a teal with my school for the Tzevet of the school, and we went for the first time. I've never really been there. At least I don't remember being there, to the area of Shechem. We didn't go into Shechem, of course, but we went to Har Bracha, Har Grizim, no, Har Eival, not Har Grizim, and we went to Itamar, which is fascinating, and we had a lot of wineries. So, because that seems to be very popular in the whole Azor of the Shomron. So we are going to go on a tiyul that follows the Mizbeach of Yoshua. In Yoshua Perek Chet, it says that he built a Mizbeach after the whole Ma'amad of Har Grizim and Har Eival, where Am Yisrael were on two different mountains, and the Leviim were in the middle, were saying brachot and klalot, and he built a Mizbeach. So there is a fascinating story about that Mizbeach that I found a little video about, and we heard, last day I heard a whole talk about it from Benny Katzover, which was also fascinating. So I'm going to add my insights that I learned yesterday to the to our tiyul. Okay, so let's find our tiyul. Where's our tiyul? Let's have a problem here finding it. Where are we? Need to find. Okay, here we go. We are going. Here, okay. I'm gonna make this big. Can everyone see? We got a stupid advertisement first. Everyone can see that?
Yep.
All right, let's wait for that advertisement to pass in another few seconds. Let me also change the sound that we could share computer sound. Okay. How long is this going to be for? 8 seconds more, and then we could start our tiyul. So once again, we're going to the Shomron. There are a lot of mountains in the Shomron, and specifically we're going to the Azor of Har Bracha and Har Eival. The Torah says, "V'natatat har bracha har grizim et haklala har Eival," and on Har Eival there is they found a Mizbeach there, and there's a fascinating story with the architect who was from, the archaeologist, excuse me, who was from Shomer HaTzair, and how he comes to slowly believe in the Tanakh.
האתר הארכיאולוגי המכונה מזבח יהושע נמצא על הר עיבל, הר הקללה המקראי, המשקיף על העיר שכם. לבקר באתר הנמצא בשטח B, יש צורך בתיאום ביטחוני, פתיחת ציר עם גשש והבטחה צמודה.
אנחנו יורדים למזבח. אנחנו בהר עיבל, ביתר דיוק בפינה הצפון מזרחית של ההר. זהו מה שמזוהה כמזבח יהושע בהר עיבל, אתר שפונה לרוחות השמיים בקודקודה, ואתר פולחני מובהק, ואתר שהוא 7/9 בגודלו, מזבח שאין לו משהו שדומה לו בארץ ישראל, אתר שמזוהה כאתר מתקופת ההתנחלות. וכאן על פי התיאוריה יהושע בן נון הלך, עשה, ביקר ונכנס לראשונה לארץ.
את האתר גילה הארכיאולוג פרופסור זרטל לפני כ-40 שנה, ולטענתו הוא מתאים לתיאור המקראי של מזבח יהושע.
So here I want to stop for a second. So there's this Professor Zartal who is from Haifa, and he is an archaeologist, and he was doing some digging 40 years ago around Har Eival when it wasn't, I guess, as dangerous to go. Now it's need to have a tzava to take you there. I was not there. We just heard the story and we saw pictures of it. So he was doing chafirot there, digging there, and he came up with this, found all these ancient rocks, which were able to date back to the time of Yoshua or so. And he could not believe what this was. It must be some kind of a building. That's what he believed was a building, but there was no signs of a building. And when he further put it together, it seemed to be a mizbeach. And we're talking to an archaeologist who is from the Shomer HaTzeir. He does not believe in the Tanakh that it's accurate. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, that it's an accurate, that it's accurate counting of what really happened. Its stories, according to the Shomer HaTzeir, at least, or some people in the Shomer HaTzeir. And after, we're going to see, after they did more digging, they found thousands of, in this area of charasim, of pottery, and thousands of remnants of bones of animals, and they were able to check them out that there were only kosher animals there. There was not one animal that was not kosher, and they weren't animals that a person has in their home or whatever. They were animals that were seemingly used for korbanot. And this Professor Zartal becomes a believer in the Tanakh as a result of this. He says this is the only way to explain this whole archaeological finding is to say that it is a mizbeach, because there was no sign of any kind of walls or any kind of roof that should have been in that, and could have been. And also there were other signs that is they found the ramp. If it was a house, it would have steps, but they know it's a ramp, and they know that the mizbeach has to have a ramp. They cannot have steps. And all these things that he found that proved that it was, plus they did a DNA testing that really of the bones, and they really went back to the time of Yoshua. So that's something that happened here, and we're going to see the end of the video here.
פרופסור זרטל בסוף שנות ה-70 מגיע לכאן לחפירה של האתר. בתום 8 עונות חפירה הוא מזהה את האתר כאתר פולחני ומציע לזהות אותו במזבח יהושע שמופיע בסוף פרק ח' בספר יהושע.
I mean, Benny Katz was telling us yesterday that he was fighting with Benny. He would not believe that this went back to Yoshua, and he could not believe this was an accurate testing of what happened in Sefer Yoshua, because he didn't believe in the Tanakh until he just had to believe it. It had him presented this way, and Benny Katzer had many discussions with him until finally Professor Zartal, who couldn't sleep anymore, and he calls him up and says, I agree with you, it is from the Tanakh.
אז יבנה יהושע מזבח לאדוני אלוהי ישראל בהר עיבל. זה מאוד נדיר שארכיאולוג אומר על אתר באופן ודאי.
It's so rare that an archaeologist says that this is related to the Tanakh, so much so that all of his friend archaeological, his colleagues, didn't believe him, and he was fighting with him when he wrote books about this, and no one believed him, of his archaeologist colleagues, that this is true.
בטח מהמאה ה-13 לפני הספירה, המון חלקו עליו בקהילה האקדמית, אבל הממצאים כאן הם ממצאים שקשה להתווכח איתם. פרופסור זרטל מוצא פה מבנה שפונה לרוחות השמיים בקודקודיו. הוא רואה כאן כבש שעולה לבמה המוגבעת של המזבח. הוא רואה כאן סובב. מה זה סובב?
That was going which I mentioned before. We know the Mizbeach that was in the Beit HaMikdash was called a Sovev, which was a halfway up. There was like a path to go around it to because it was high up the Mizbeach, so they used to do things on the side, sprinkle the blood or whatever, and that was the Sovev that went around the Mizbeach.
סובב זה מעין מסדרון, מעין שביל שמקיף את המזבח. הדברים הללו מופיעים בספר ויקרא כאשר מצווים על מזבח. למשל, לא תעלה במעלות על מזבחי, לא תגלה ערוותך עליו. זאת אומרת, אי אפשר שהכהנים יעלו במדרגות למזבח. לכן ישנו כבש. כאשר הוא חופר את המזבח הזה, פנימה הוא מגלה בפנים לא פחות מ1,000 עצמות של בעלי חיים כשרים. כולם מתחת לגיל שנה, כולם קרבים על המזבח.
Are brought usually around 1 year, especially Korban Olah. So they able to date the animal bones. I don't know how they did this, but there's DNA that they knew they were around 1 year old. Plus, they were, as I said, for their old kosher animals, and there's a lot of efer. Their bones were all burnt up. Why was that? That's clearly korban olah. Some of them were korbanot shlamim. That's why they had found the pottery to eat them with. But many were korbanot olah, which was completely burned up. This is the shizur of the mizbeach.
ממש כאן מאחוריי, באזור שאולי היה המחסנים של המזבח, נמצאו חרפושיות, חותמות מצריות שמתארכות את האתר. חותם זה בעצם סימן היכר של מלך מצרי, וכשאנחנו בודקים את החותמות, החותמות הללו הן מהמאה ה-13 לפני הספירה.
They found coins from the time of Yetziat Mitzrayim. They able to date them back to Yetziat Mitzrayim from Ramses II, who was the king of Egypt during the time of Yetziat Mitzrayim. We have records of that. And they found coins or things that were like coins there. Why would that be? Because this was a door that left Mitzrayim. Their children, they were all died out in the Midbar, but the children, the young people, were less than 20. They had these coins from their fathers or had them themselves, and they were the ones who went into Eretz Yisrael. So they found these coins there because it's showing that it goes back to the door that left Mitzrayim. The one we know from 20 to 60, that's Parshat Shavua, Parshat Shlach, they all died out. But the ones from before 20, of course, they were the ones who went into Eretz Yisrael, and they're the ones who were present at this whole tekes of Har Bracha and Har Harizim, and they were at the Mizbeach.
רעמסס השני, כן? זוהי התקופה שאדם זרטל מנסה או רוצה לשייך לתאריך יציאת מצרים המקראי.
למרות הבעיה הביטחונית, במועצה המקומית שומרון מתכננים להפוך את האתר הארכיאולוגי לאתר תיירותי.
הייחודיות של מזבח הר עיבל, גם תיירים מהעם היהודי וגם מחוץ לארץ מאוד מחוברים לתנ"ך, ואתר כזה בעצם מאשש את האמונה שלנו בתנ"ך, ואתר כזה יש לו פוטנציאל מאוד גבוה להביא תיירים.
Psukim in the Tanakh that really happened, that people who are doubting them, this is a archaeological proof. I mean, we don't really need archaeological proof for that. We know that it happened. But the people who have doubts, this proves this whole Knisa of Eretz Yisrael, where in the Tekes of Har Guzim and Har Eival and the Yoshua, this all proves these things that people have been doubting in the Tanakh for many years. All the Mivakrei Aktan, the people who question the Tanakh, the people who are critical of the Tanakh, who don't believe everything, that he just proves it. So they want to make a whole side into it, but the problem is a tourist side. But the problem is it's a baya bitchonit getting there.
וזה חלק ממכלול גדול של התיירות בשומרון, יש פה עוד אתרים תנכיים רבים. מורכבות היום של תייר להגיע לכאן היא בעיקר מורכבות הביטחונית. להגיע לכאן חיילים, אז העבודה שלנו במועצה זה בעצם להנגיש כמה שניתן ביחד עם הצבא, להנגיש את האתרים החשובים מאוד האלה, התיירים שבאים.
האתר הארכיאולוגי גדול ומרשים ומשוחזר בחלקו. אולם בניגוד לפרופסור זרטל, ארכיאולוגים אחרים טוענים כי המקום הוא בעצם מגדל שמירה, ואין כל הוכחה מדעית כי האתר קשור לגיבור המקראי.
האם אפשר לחבר את האתר הזה ליהושע בן נון? אני מעריך שבסבירות רבה כן. האם אנחנו יכולים לדעת מה קרה לפני יותר מ-3,000 שנה? זו שאלה שעל גבול הבלתי אפשרי לענות עליה מבחינה מדעית. אבל מה שבטוח זה שהיו פה אנשים שבאו ממקום אחר לגמרי, שלא גרו פה, זה בטוח, והם כנראה באו ממצרים, כי יש להם פה וגם לא גרו פה הרבה זמן, זה גם בטוח. כי בכל המתחם הזה לא מצאו עצמות של בעלי חיים מבויתים. אף אחד לא גר פה, זה אתר פולחני מובהק, אין פה שאלה בנושא הזה. איך תפרש את זה? זה כבר שאלה שלך.
Other people don't want to agree to this. They say it's some kind of Migdal Shmira, but the proof is that it was not, that it was Ris Mizbeach. Many people don't want to accept it, but that's the proof. Another proof we just mentioned here that they found is that one of the things of the Mizbeach is you're not allowed to cut the stones to make them nicely nicely squared or rectangled. And that's the kind of stones that they found here. They were all this rough stone because that's the kind of stones. Now let me use a barzel on the mizbeach, on the avnei mizbeach, because the barzel is for killing, and the mizbeach is for kaparat, for people to stay alive. So therefore, that was another proof. There are all these different proofs that it was from time of Yoshua, and that was one of our fascinating parts of our tiyul yesterday, and that was our tiyul for today. Anybody have any points to make on that?
Is there a similar mizbeach or archaeological findings on Har Grizim, or in Tanakh does it say that they brought a mizbeach only in Har Eival?
No, it's only on Har Eival. They stood on Har Grizim and Har Eival, but the mizbeach that Yoshua built seemed to be on Har Eival. There's a little problem which they brought up yesterday that maybe on a different side. They don't know how to explain that. Maybe Yoshua, because it wasn't on the place where they stood for the whole tekes of the bracha and the klala in Sefer Dvarim and also in Sefer Yoshua. But if they moved to a different place where more people would stand, that was what Benny Khan was saying, that there was this area there where the mizbech was, where many more people could see it, because the Shechem seemed to be the place where that's in between Har Grizim and Har Eival on either side. And the whole point is that that's where the Kohanim could stand in the middle and people would hear and say Amen, and they proved that. But for the Mizbech, where everyone could stand and see, that would have to be on a different side of the mountain. But it was really fascinating. Okay, I know I took a little extra time today on our tiyul. We spent the whole day in the Shomron. It was really beautiful. Now we go finish up our bracha of Shechianu, and then if there's time, we'll do something else. Okay, so I go back to the first slide of this slideshow. That was the 6 situations where you make Shechianu. You've covered almost all of them. The first one is Moadim V'Yamim Tovim, on Yom Tov. Right, you make Shechianu either on Kiddush or when you light the candles. A mitzvah, you light the Hanukkah candles, you make a Shechianu. You blow the shofar, you make the Shechianu. You sit in the sukkah, you Kiddush, or you sit in the sukkah, and the lulav, you make a Shechianu. You do a mitzvah when you put on tzitzit, mitzvat milah, you make a Shechianu. New fruit. I guess they had the opportunity to eat a new fruit. I got to eat a lychee. Don't really like them so much, but I knew it was up to make a shechianu, so I did it anyway. That was the new fruit. That's for a new fruit that you make a shechianu on as well. Then we have when you see your friend that you love, that you're happy to see him, you haven't seen him in 30 days. We did that. We discussed that. That was last week. Shema, go down to Vav, Shema Tova, say here good news. We discussed that point as well. What we haven't discussed is really, hey, Kinyan Sherochei Shadam, something that a person buys and is happy with that item. That's what we're going to discuss today, and that will conclude our discussion of Shechianu. By the way, yesterday we had also an interesting situation. We made Hatov Ametiv. When we went to the winery, and they give you 2 different wines or 3 different wines, so you can make on the first one, you make the first one Bari Pri Hagef, and the second one you make the bracha of Hatov Ametiv, especially because there's more than one person who is drinking with you, so that's not a problem at all. Okay, where is our Shechianu? Okay, here we go. Rechishat Dvarim Chadashim, buying new items. Bana Bayit Chadash. If you built a new house, the kana kelim chadashim, it's not and, it's or. You bought new items, you bought a new refrigerator. Omer shechayanu v'kiyimanu v'giyanu lazman hazeh. And the Gemara says, Amar Abuna lo shanu ela she'ein lo kayotze bahem. That's only if you don't have like those items. Avayesh lo kayotze bahem. In other words, if you bought another, according to this, if you bought another refrigerator, you have one, you bought another one, then according to Rav Huna, you wouldn't make a shechianu on it. Or if you have one house and you bought and built another house, you wouldn't necessarily make a shechianu on it. However, Rabbi Yochanan Amar, afilu yesh lo kayotze ben tzich lever. Even if you have 6 homes in different places, you can make a shechianu on each house. Also, if you have 6 refrigerators, also you can make a shechianu on each and every one. The Gemara continues, Michlal dechikana, the chazar v'kana, divrei hakol ein tzich livrech. What happens if a person had bought one and then they sold it and then bought it back, right? They wouldn't make a bracha. And then, so even if you bought it, the end of the Gemara is Rabbi Yochanan Amar, afilu kana, the chazar v'kana tzich livrech. Even if you bought it and you sold it and you bought it back again, you would still make a bracha on shechianu on these items. So something that is new to you, that is new to you. Once again, if it's not necessarily a new item, we're going to see that, you can still make a shechianu on it because usually if you're buying it, you're happy that you bought it. Let's see the Shulchan Aruch on this, and then I'll open up for questions. Shulchan Aruch writes as follows. Bana bayit chadash, o kana kelim chadashim. You built a new house, or you bought new items, even if you had similar to these items in the beginning, or you bought and you bought it again, you sold it and you bought it again, it doesn't have to be a brand new 2020 car. Even if it's not necessarily new, even if it's a 2015 car, you can still make a shechianu on it. Even if it's old. If it's new to you. You didn't have this item before. So here he says that if you bought back what you sold, then you wouldn't make a shechianu on it. Person is in debt for Lolena, right? So he sold items and he bought them back from a pawn shop, they wouldn't do it. It would make shechan. But if it's something that even if you had a similar one and then you sold and bought a new one, you had a car, you had a 1998 Chevy and you sold it and you bought a new car, you make a bracha, not necessarily a 2020, you make a shechianu on it. If you had some damage to your home and you had to rebuild part of it, you'd also make a shechianu. That's if it was damage to it. But if you on your own broke your home, you wanted to do a shiputz according to this, we're going to see another opinion shortly. If you if you broke part of your house and then you rebuilt it, some say some say you should make a bracha on this. The mosifba is a shura begova. But if you made it nicer, then, or you added, make it a little higher, make the ceiling higher, make a room a little bigger, then you can make a bracha. And here the Piskei Teshuvot, one of the poskim which we've seen before, Vim shipetz et dirat migurav, ba'ofen sheshina et surat chadarav. If you did a shiputz, that you changed the way things were, and I would say even if you redid your kitchen and you redid your cabinets and you moved your table from here to there and did something like that, because you can make a bracha if you're happy. If you're happy the way, if you don't like what it came out, so I don't think you make a shechianu on it, because shechianu is a din of being happy. But if you are, then you can make a shechianu on this item, on rebuilding or the house or appliances as well. Before, I want to skip to a different slide, and then we'll go back to clothing in a moment. So here is where we discussed this before, the Piskei Teshuvah, which discusses, here, I just want to go to this point, the second paragraph, and then we'll come back to the slide afterwards when we discuss clothing. Umaskanat halacha v'haminhag. Linyan kelim beitiyim. When it comes to buying a new refrigerator, for example, v'chadome, ein noagim levarech. A lot of people do not make a bracha. If you remember our discussion from 2 weeks ago, we discussed that if something is only benefiting me, then I make a shechianu. If something benefits the people of my whole household, let's say a refrigerator, then theoretically a bracha would be hatov amitiv because it's benefiting more than one person. But according to the Piskei Teshuva, people don't have the minhag to make a bracha. For example, people don't have the minhag that we discussed last time. When they see someone they haven't seen in a long time, they don't make their bracha either for some reason. ואף כלים יקרים וחשובים ביותר, כגון מכונית חדשה, מזגן, ושאר מכשירי חשמל חשובים ויקרים, ארונות ושאר רהיטים. A person who buys a refrigerator, a new air conditioner, a new car, or new closets, a new couch, a new set of silver, a new silver coast, whatever. A lot of people don't make a shehecheyanu. However, Hasomech levarech hatov amitiv. The person who wants to make a bracha on things that are everybody benefits from hatov amitiv. Oh, shehecheyanu lo hifsid. In other words, you're allowed to make a shechach. The person really feels happy. He wants to show hakarat hatov for what he just was able to buy. Then he can make a shehecheyanu. V'hainu al kelim hayikarim hanizkarim shesh lo simchat alev. A person is really happy about it. Sometimes a person buys a new oven, but they really like the old oven. What happened? The old oven broke. So it got old and it broke. But they always dream about having their old oven, which was bigger and better and stronger, and the color was fitting and it better. I don't know, for whatever reason. I don't think a person make a shehecheyanu because that was something he didn't have a choice to do, to replace. And here we have the classical way to get out of something which we're not sure about what to do. The best thing to do, put on a brand new shirt, make a shehecheyanu, and then, or get a new fruit, a lychee, make a shehecheyanu, and have in mind your new refrigerator. I don't like that. If a person really is happy about it, he should make the shehecheyanu. But poskim are afraid to say. The reason is because you can't measure a person's, all these subjective things. A person really happy with their refrigerator? Was he really happy with their sheet puts? Did it come out the way they wanted it to come out? Maybe yes, maybe no. And therefore, they didn't want to say a person make shehecheyanu. When it comes to the things that the Gemara says specifically to make a shehecheyanu for example, a new fruit, a new piece of clothing, which we're going to discuss clothing in a moment, there you make a shehecheyanu. There was a question that came up here. In the chat, wasn't there? Why do they make a shehecheyanu when a girl is born? Hatov amitiv when a boy is born. Okay, so we discussed this 2 weeks ago, and I've done a little research since as well. The reason is, once upon a time, was that when it came to a boy, so a boy is going to be able to provide parnasa for the whole family when he goes out to work, and therefore everyone is benefiting from him. What a woman, what a girl, what are they gonna say? She's not gonna provide. Today there are many posts, not many. There are not a post. I say that this is irrelevant. And discuss. Rav Shabtai Rappaport says you can make a shehecheyanu or hatov amitiv for either one, a boy or a girl, and there is no difference today. Rav Zalman Melamed also says the same thing. A person can make hatov amitiv whether it's a boy or a girl. Today we don't differentiate. I once heard a question of someone who's makpid on to make a shehecheyanu for a girl and a hatov amitiv for a boy. What happens if it's twin girls? Can they make hatov amitiv or not? Because it's two. Didn't get an answer to that question. So Yehudit, I'm going to answer your question shortly when we go back to clothing. I didn't discuss that issue in the halacha. We'll go back to clothing and then I will ask your question. Are there any other questions before we go back to clothing? Anybody? Wow, so clear.
Yes. Yeah, I couldn't make it unmute.
Okay.
When say you have a new kitchen, you've been walking in and out with the kablan for the last 6 weeks, and you're going crazy. When do you make the shehecheyanu?
When you feel like it's done.
Never. Okay.
When you feel like it's, you're able to use it and you're not complaining about it, and you don't look at it and say, oh gosh, when is he going to finish that little piece? I think when you feel like it's more or less done, and and functional, and that's it. But it's a good question. There's a similar question we're going to get to when it comes to clothing. That when you buy the clothing, some say you make shechianu when you buy the clothing, but if it has to have some kind of tikkunim, you have to put a hem on, you have to fix the sleeve, you have to do something, then you wouldn't make a shechianu until you're able to really, really wear it, and you put it on, actually, which we're going to get to that question in a moment. Any other questions before I go to clothing? Clothing? Okay, so let's go to clothing, and then we're going to discuss one more point after clothing, and we'll see if we have time for one other item. Okay, Shulchan Aruch discusses clothing. Bishata kinyan, according to Shulchan Aruch, when you go into the clothing store and you buy the nice new dress, yesh lo levarech. Even though you didn't put it on yet, you didn't show it to all your friends. You're happy when you buy it and now you have it. You finally found the dress that you like. You finally found it and it fits you. You make the bracha. And when you wear it, then you make the bracha malbish arumim. So according to this, there are two brachot. One is when you buy the dress or the piece of clothing, and the other one is when you wear it, you'll make the bracha of malbish arumim. The Mishnah Berurah says, "Davkim kana beged shera'u lelovsho techef." Only if this is an item which doesn't have to be altered, if it's ready to be worn as is. But if it's not ready to be worn, you have to fix this, you have to fix that. Only when you're able to use it. You buy a nice new watch, but you know that the band is too big and you have to get it fixed. You have to bring it to a watchmaker to hook out the links in the watch so that it'll fit properly. So then you would only make it when it's ready. And here's the Piskei Teshuvot, Haminhag hapashut levarech b'sha'at levisha. And the minhag is to make the bracha not when you buy it, but when you wear it the first time. V'lo b'shat kniya, not when you buy it. A long time ago, 3 weeks ago, we discussed new fruit, and then we discussed that maybe you should make a bracha when you see it, not when you eat it. And we said that you can if you're not going to eat it, but if you're going to eat it, there's a greater hana when you eat it, and therefore make the bracha when you eat it. So similarly to the clothing, there's a greater hana when you wear it more than when you buy it. So therefore, you should make the bracha really bishat lebisha when you wear it, and not when you buy it. Just one more item. The bracha malbish arumim. So we said before that if you're going to make the bracha when you buy it, then you make the bracha malbish arumim when you wear it. But if you're going to make the shechianu when you wear it, do you make a malbish arumim as well? And the Shulchan Aruch, the Mishnah Berurah writes as follows: Mipnei nechitzuto harabah shel halevush. Because we're clothing people. We have to wear clothing. We have to wear a lot of clothing. We have to switch our clothing. Tiknu chachamim shehalovesh beged chadash yodeh l'Hashem yitbarach baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam malbish arumim ve'achar kach yivarech shechianu. Ve'im hu lovesh et habeged hachadash baboker. If you're going to put it on right away in the morning, if you're going to put it on Erev Shabbat, before Shabbat or before Chag, so then you didn't make you made a mention in the morning, not related to this item of clothing. But so then you would make two brachot. But if you're putting it on ala boker, then you're already going to say Birkat HaShachar Malbish Arumim. So the Malbish Arumim is saying Birkat HaShachar goes also for the new piece of clothing, and you would only make a shechiyanu, and it's good to have kavanah beforash for that item. So basically, what we said that really you make a bracha shechiyanu when you wear it. Some say you make the bracha when you buy it, assuming it's ready to be worn as is. But when it comes to, if it has to be fixed, then for sure you make the bracha shechina when you put it on. We are no way to make the shechina when we wear it. And then we make two brachot. We make the bracha of malbish arumim, and we also make the bracha of Shechayanu. If you're going to put it on in the morning, then you make the bracha Meshum and Birkat HaShachar, and then just make the Shechayanu when you wear it on the morning. Before questions, I want to just go back to the slide that I didn't discuss about the clothing. And this answers your question about if I'm getting a hand-me-down. If you give a hand-me-down to your child, what do? Can that child make a Shechayanu? And can you educate to make Shechayanu? So we have as follows. Mishnah Berurah, this read is Sifkat in Yuded. Kelim Chadashim ben Malbushim ben Klei Tashmish. If a person is happy, okay. If a person makes him happy, ani bera'ui lo, ve'ashir bera'ui lo. In other words, for each person, for what makes him happy. It could be that a person who's ani, if he gets a t-shirt, he'll be happy. He can make a shechayanu on it. A person who's wealthy, to get a t-shirt, it's not going to really make him happy. Only when he buys a $1,000 suit, he's going to be happy. If he's not happy about it, doesn't affect him. But he has such expensive clothing, and he buys something, a new shirt, but it's not such an expensive shirt, he would make a shechayanu. We don't make shechayanu on undergarments, we don't make shechayanu on socks, we don't make shechayanu on things that are not chashuv, but only begadim, that on pajamas we would make a shechayanu, only things that are important. And the last paragraph here, begadim chadashim and begadim hachashuvim, me'il, chalifa, kove yakar, mehuda, yemot hachol, shabbat, talit, nogim mevarech shechayanu, אבל גם זה מצינו מנהגים שאין לברך. Some say not to make a shechayanu. Again, we go back to those sources that don't like making shechayanu. And here we have, if you don't, you're not sure if you make a shechayanu, so put a shechayanu on Rosh Hashanah. We'd make a shechayanu anyway on the Chag, and then you be Yotzei also for the Chag. Question. So it doesn't mention it here, but clearly if a person gets a hand-me-down also, he's happy about it. It's not brand new. You get your grandmother's gold watch. You can wear for the first time. You can make a shechayanu on it if it makes you happy. All these things are if they make you happy. Questions. I'll open up the microphone. Who wants to speak?
Shoes?
No.
Even shoes are so expensive.
Why? Good question. It's brought down not to make a bracha on shoes because shoes were involved in Tsar Baalei Chaim. And therefore, you don't make a shechayanu on something that has involved with some kind of tsar. But it's not, it could be very expensive, I don't know, in a designer label shoes, still, you wouldn't make a shechayanu on shoes. Other questions?
What if they're made from man-made materials? What if they are made from man-made materials?
There's a concept called, excellent question, there's a concept called lo plug. We don't differentiate. Once they made a takana not to make on shoes, and wouldn't make it on any kind of shoe, whether it's man-made, leather-made, garbage-made, canvas-made, whatever it is, it's still, you'd make a shechayanu on it.
And how many times do you make it? You go and you get dressed for Shabbos and you put on your new dress and you make a shechayanu. Go back to the kitchen and there's these beautiful lychees and grapes that you haven't eaten. And do you need another shechayanu when you eat them?
We go back to what happens Rosh Hashanah, the second night of Rosh Hashanah at night, correct?
Right.
We're not sure if we need to make a shechayanu. So what do? You put on a nice new dress, and you make your shechayanu on the Adlakat Neirot, and that goes for the shechayanu of Rosh Hashanah. Or you have your nice fresh lychee rimon starfruit, which have no taste, or exactly. I don't know what else to right? And you have that as your brand new fruit, and then you don't make a shechayanu on the fruit. So one shechayanu really could go for everything, but that depends if you really had it in mind. If you didn't think about it, you didn't know you were going to have these brand new fruits, and you just knew about your dress, so you make a shechayanu for each item. technically you can make a shehecheyanu. If you have I think we discussed this from the fruit, if you have a few shecheyanus in front of you, fruit, you have grapes, lychees, and mangoes, which are now becoming ripe, and they won't be hopefully 40 shekel a kilo. So you would make one shehecheyanu for all three fruits that are in front of you. If you didn't have the fruit in front of you, all of a sudden someone brings you a mango and you made a shehecheyanu on nice grapes that are shehecheyanu for you, then you'd make another shehecheyanu on it. Questions, other questions? We don't hear you. Unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
It's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
What about clothes that are made from leather?
It's a good question, but the answer really is that just like I can make a shehecheyanu on a leather couch, I can make a shehecheyanu on a leather jacket or on once again, a belt is not important enough. A jacket, a nice leather jacket, or how about a mink coat, which has also tzar balei chaim in it, right?
You said
I know what I said. I said that his shoes you don't make a shehecheyanu for because they have shecheyan, they have a tzar balei chaim. But the minhag is that for a nice mink coat, I never had one. I never bought my wife one. I'm not going to be buying her one, but still you could make a shehecheyanu on that, even though there may have been tzar balei chaim in getting the fur off those animals, because it's a coat. So we go with what is the item, not necessarily the tzar that may have been involved in it as well. Yocheved, what was your question? Unmute. Don't hear you.
Sorry, why does it keep going back to mute? Okay, here I am. What if you wore something already and then you took a shiur and you learned that it warranted a shehecheyanu? Can you make it when you wear it again?
I would say if it's still new. Once it went through cleaning or
What if
washing.
What if it's something that you got as a result? You know, it's from your mother-in-law that was niftarah, and then you were zocha to start wearing it because everybody got something, and you didn't know that it warranted the shehecheyanu.
Once again, assuming it's like still fresh.
But it's not new. It was worn.
It was never new. It was never new, right? Because now it's a hand-me-down. So therefore, in that case, depending if you still have the simcha in that item, then you can make a shehecheyanu. If the simcha is like, once you wore it the first time already, and it's not the same simcha the second time, then you wouldn't make a shehecheyanu. Assuming you still have, let's take, for example, how about a brand new dress? You forgot to wear shehecheyanu, but you never washed it yet. You only wore it for a few minutes, and you put it on again, you can make a shehecheyanu on it. So as long as that there's the simcha still connected to it, then you could still make a shehecheyanu on the item.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before I go to another point? And then I guess what we're going to do the other activity next week. Okay. How about instead of getting a nice new dress from somebody, you got money. You got a nice Yerusha. Somebody passed away and they had millions of dollars, and now they've passed it on to you. What do you, or you won the lotto, right? You one of those lucky people who played and won. What was that?
You make a shehecheyanu for sure.
Oh, let's hear. Hamekabel matana kaspit. A person gets a nice monetary present. O zacha b'hagrala, or he won the lotto. Or kibel Yerusha kaspit, or he got a nice inheritance. Mevarech shehecheyanu. V'imim shutafim, if he has the Yerusha as a few brothers and sisters together, whatever it is, they can make hatov hametiv. It's brought in some poskim that the person heard that their relative died, and they made a dayan ha'emet, and right after that, they knew they were wealthy, they made right afterwards hatov hametiv. Little not in good taste, but that's what they did. Has to be an important amount of money. What's important amount of money? That's a question. There's לקניית בגד או קבלתו. There's a difference between getting money versus getting an item, a piece of clothing, or a piece of jewelry. בבגד, יש לאדם שמחה מיידית. A person has immediate joy when they have that and they get that piece of clothing. גם אם שוויו נמוך, therefore, even if it's maybe worth less than the money he won as in lotto, הואיל בפועל הוא שמח בו, עליו יברך, because he's happy with it, he makes the bracha. אבל זכייה כספית רק מאפשרת לקנות דברים. The person has a lot of money. There's the famous Mishnah Pirkei Avot that says marbe nechasim, marbe daga, right? But here, the money just allows him to buy things. וכדי שהשמחה בכסף יהיה ממשית, צריך שסכום הזכייה יהיה בעל חשיבות עבור הזוכה. It has to be an important amount, a large amount of money that really a person feels, wow. It's as if he bought something, even if he didn't buy anything, because then now I'm now moving to a different tax bracket. ונראה שאנשים פשוטים, simple people, כמו צעירים שעדיין לא התחילו לעבוד, או מבוגרים שמצבם דחוק, people who are not so wealthy. Rav Zalman Melamed brings down the amount of, brings down 500 shkalim in 2004. 2014. That would be an amount. Cholim lechashev schum gadol. I think it needs to be more than that, but that's his opinion. Shemismechu bo yivarchu. אבל אנשים שיש להם יותר כסף, שמחים שמחה ממשית רק אם זכייתם תהיה גדולה יותר, only if they get a lot more money, והכל לפי אופיים ועושרם. Basically, it's a subjective thing here as well, depending on how much money you get, how much wealth you have prior to that. אמנם, אין צורך שהזכייה הכספית תהיה גבוהה כמו משכורת חודשית, אלא אפילו מי שמרוויח, אפילו מי שמרוויח 5,000 שקלים בחודש, עם זכייה של 2,000 שקלים משמחת אותו, יברך. So we have a person, I can't tell exactly the parameters of what is the amount, but a lot of money, a person feels he got a lot of money, he could clearly make a shechiyanu or hatova hamitiv if it's more than one person who is going to benefit from that object, from that money, from that amount of money. And the last slide that I have is about what's called a ma'anak. Sometimes when you're working, you get some kind of a bonus. It could be a pre-Pesach bonus. It could be whatever reason the boss decides to give bonuses to all the workers. Al hatavot u'ma'anakim shemikubal lahanik la'ovdim b'mizgeret avodatam. The company, they made a great deal. Now they want to give bonuses out to everybody. So according to this, Ein mivarchim. We don't make a bracha on it. Why? Ki ein bahem chidush. You know that's part of getting your salary, that if the company does well, they'll give out bonuses every once in a while. V'chein ein nevarech al revachim shotfim shadam ragil arviach ba'asakam. Person, the stock goes up, you wouldn't make a bracha necessarily on it because you know that stocks go up and down. If suddenly a person, wow, his stock went up, I don't know, 100%, so here it's what we basically learned, and it's one of the frustrating things that we learned about in the Birchav Shechiyanu. It's like either you have people who are afraid to make Shechiyanu, so just do it on a new fruit or on a chag, or maybe a new piece of clothing if it's really chashuv, or you have the other, anything that makes you happy. It's so subjective. If you feel happy, you can make a shechiyanu, but it's something that's so liquid. It's not, you can't put your finger on each and every point about the brachav shechem, which has been very frustrating for me when I've been preparing this shiurim to try to put your finger. So what? How much? 600 shekel. Do I make a shechiyanu? I make a shechiyanu. 1,000. It's not clear. So it's a function of how much money do you have, how happy you are by it. Some people, if they win the lotto, they know they're just going to be so much mutrad from all the tzedakah people. They're going to be nudging them now because now their name gets out that they won the lotto. So maybe they won't be so happy. I don't know. I never had to deal with that situation, and I don't play the lotto, so I don't plan on dealing with that situation. But the point is that it's a very subjective bracha, except for go back to our very first slide, which is the situation of the chagim, the mitzvot. There's no subjectivity, but everything else, and by where we had a little problem there by when if it's is it brand new, is something that if a few times during the year, if it's mitchadesh, how about red grapes, green grapes? We discussed all these issues. There are a lot of issues when it comes to shechianu. People don't like to make a shechianu when they see a new friend or friend they haven't seen in a while, but clearly a person should, and I go back to a different slide that we saw about the idea behind the whole shechianu, that a person should really feel hakarat hatov to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for what he has and what he is able to fix his house. You don't want to make a shechianu? Okay, don't make a shechianu. You're happy to see a friend, you're afraid to say the Shem Hashem, say Baruch shechianu v'kimani gazman hazeh. Whatever it is. But a person should train himself that all these things that happen in our lives, that we realize they're from Hashem, and we have to give thanks to them. And that was what we saw. Yesh ladat, I'm going to read this line and I'll stop. Yesh ladat ki ein tzorech b'simcha miyuchedet hachoreget mehamakubal k'dei l'rasha. You don't really need some out-of-this-world simcha in order to have a shechianu. When a person is happy about something, technically the halacha allows him to make a shechianu. There are poskim who don't want. The fact is that you can, and if it makes you happy, adarabah, make the shechianu. He says, don't wait for the big bombastic event that you want to make the shechianu for. But we have to realize that there's so many things in our lives that happen to us that make us happy, that we should give hodah l'Kadosh Baruch Hu on each and every one of them. I see we have a few comments. Let's open up the comments, the chat. Okay, what does our chat say? Okay, so I think we answered questions, Yudit's question about if jewelry, and once again, same thing, jewelry and clothing. Made for leather, we answered. Minkot, not PC. What's PC?
Politically correct.
Okay. Thank you for the parish. What about new job or entering retirement? I think that when it comes to a new job, it's so many question marks how it's going to be. And I think the same thing with retirement, what's going to be. I think a person has to appreciate the fact that if they have enough money, they're not worried about money, they could retire comfortably. But how did it happen? I don't have an answer. It's not every bracha. It's more the shechianu. And I agree with you. That's what I pointed out here, this last point, that we should really learn to give hoda'ah to every little thing, which is why I wasn't afraid last week to make a shechianu. When I saw all of you, I wasn't afraid. Lightning didn't come down and strike me after I finished making that shechianu. I think we all felt a level of simcha. I think that's what we have to learn to do for our lives, in our lives. Okay. I think we have a 5-minute break, and then Moshe's going to take over. I'm just telling you what I started preparing for. I thought maybe we'd start this week. I'm